Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Bryan Jenks, and today we're going to be talking about Obsidian versus Roam. If you don't know what Roam Research and Obsidian are, they are two very popular applications right now in the PKM space, or Personal Knowledge Management. PKM and the applications associated with it are really gaining popularity and traction nowadays. A lot of people are using these applications, and certain concepts like BASB, or Build a Second Brain, to use these tools to organize, collect, and link their knowledge together in webs and networks so that it aids not only in creating new insights, but also finding new serendipitous like writing prompts or ideas for videos. Basically, you collect information and knowledge and you distill ideas and insights from that, record it, link it to what you already have, and then recombine and reconfigure all of this information into new ways for the purpose of a creative outlet, be it writing, video, or anything of the sort. For those that want the TLDR, I chose Obsidian for a few primary reasons. One, it is free. Two, it deals with a local storage of your files. Your data is your data. It's on your machine, and there's nothing sent to anyone. There is no cloud hosting by default. It's all on your local machine, which means you control it. It's plain text files, and you can do with it whatever you wish. Along with those points, Obsidian is not a web app like a Roam Research is. It is an Electron app, but this means we can also use it offline. So if I want to go up to the mountains, just get away and do some writing, I do not have to have an internet connection to do this. And then finally, I personally have felt that walking into Obsidian is much easier to just get started and start playing around with things and getting things done than Roam. This is only my personal opinion, and I don't hold anything against Roam. I think Roam is a really cool application, and there are just some subtle differences that made me choose Obsidian. And I'm not going to talk about a lot of the overlap that these editors have today, because all of these different types of note-taking applications, text editors, all these things have a large swath of overlap. It's really those key defining features where they are extremely opinionated or different and set themselves apart that they really stand out. And so I'm only really going to touch on the things that are differences to a fairly large degree between these two editors and why I think Obsidian is a better choice, at least for my situation and maybe for yours. If you've been around my channel for a while, you'll know that early on in my channel, I was using vikwiki for all of my knowledge management. It has wiki links with the double bracket syntax by default, and it's a very useful way of having all of your notes in plain text in a single directory, a top-level directory, and using Vim, the key bindings, and a terminal. It was a really efficient way of collecting this information and linking it together. I have since moved away from vikwiki in favor of Obsidian for a variety of reasons that I will cover in subsequent videos. But namely, there is an amazing graph view. This whole editor is geared specifically for PKM and the ability to configure your own workflow for the purpose of personal knowledge management. Not to mention, there is extensive support for a lot of different parts and things of Markdown. So we have presentations, we have the ability to integrate like Anki cards, and some of the stuff does overlap with vikwiki, and in the end you can use vikwiki and Obsidian side by side. So if you're the type of person that still really enjoys vikwiki but you want to try this out, if you use the original vikwiki syntax, I think tags are different because it uses the double colon syntax, but with Obsidian, if you have the links with the double brackets, you'll already have the ability to see the network graph of your current knowledge base. All right, enough about vikwiki. Y'all came to hear about Obsidian and Roam Research. So, as I said, I'm not going to talk about all the things that they both do or which one does that thing better. I'm going to talk about the most glaring differences and things that might actually be, deal breakers for one of these editors for you. I'm not going to say Obsidian does everything better than Roam or that Roam completely blows Obsidian out of the water. They are different. They are geared for different purposes. Roam is very opinionated about what it's there for, and it really depends on your use case. It's not a matter of which one is better, it's which one is better for you and what you want to do with it. So, let's get right into these. First and foremost, the deal breaker for me. I'm okay with paying a little bit of money for something if it's really worth it, but What I do not like is something that I have to have internet connection for. Roam Research is a SaaS application, which means it is a software as a service, meaning you need to have internet connectivity to utilize Roam. All of your data is on Roam's servers or wherever they do their hosting, and if there's any sort of data loss, sorry. Hope you certainly exported all that stuff and backed it up. Now, as I talk about all of these items, I'm not 100%, fully researched on what Roam has to offer because I am obviously with Obsidian. I did a little bit of looking, but if options exist, please place those in the comments for other people. But Roam Research is a SaaS app, which means you need to have internet access and connectivity to utilize it. You can't just go up to the mountains and continue using Roam. But Obsidian, and this is one of the reasons why I really enjoy Obsidian, is coming from Linux and a Unix-based system. I really like local storage of my files. I like my files being in plain text, and then I like being able to control my data. And that is one of the main tenets of what Obsidian stands for in their core values is your data is yours. It's plain text files in a directory on your local machine. No data is sent to anyone, anywhere, at any time, unless you directly make it happen. You can put your own files on a cloud storage system of your own, Dropbox, iCloud, whatever you want to do. But that's your choice. It's your data and it's plain text files. And having plain text files also means your system is more portable. You can put it up on GitHub, you can do version control on your files if you wanted to, you can have it hosted on a cloud service, you can have it hosted on many cloud services. You can even share your vaults if you wanted to. But ultimately, it's plain text files are more portable, and the proprietary format, I'm not sure if it's proprietary or not, but the format that Roam does for its syntax when you export it is not like a lot of other editors. Obsidian does have a couple things that I think are unique to it, but most of the syntax actually overlaps with common Markdown specifications. So currently, one of the biggest contentions between Roam and Obsidian is block level referencing. I know. This is what people argue about nowadays, is being able to reference certain blocks of text in a application. Roam Research really does well with block level referencing, which means that I can be typing in a file and then have the name of that file be something like today's tasks, and then in any document anywhere else in Roam, I can type today's tasks and it will find that block of text. Not the entire file, just that specific block. And because everything in Roam is bullet points, basically, that whole block of text will now be returned when you were on the page, today's tasks. And then you can see all the things that reference that or that it references, and even things that are not currently referenced, called unlinked references. And so this powerful system allows you to be able to have all of the text in your entire knowledge base indexed based on whatever you're currently looking at. You can see every time anything else is ever mentioned. So Obsidian offers this in a way, but not to this level of granularity. What Obsidian offers is the ability to link to specific pages or the headings in those pages. Where this becomes, it up to you is how deep do you want to go on having these connections created. So you can have all of your information available to you, and you can link to it, you can see where it's referenced and maybe not explicitly linked, but what Roam really does well is it provides all the links to all the pieces of text in the content by default. The same behavior really only comes when you completely say the explicit file name of a Markdown file, or you link that document explicitly with a hard link. So some might even be asking, okay, block referencing, why? Who cares? Why is that even useful or important? So, because Roam takes such a granular approach to referencing not just files, not just headings, but individual blocks, units of a page or document you're looking at, it means that all the times it's mentioned or linked, you have a complete history of all of your content that ever used or mentioned whatever you're looking at. But also, because you have that complete history, you are also more able to serendipitously see the connections and large overview of your network of knowledge with this granular approach. You can see more connections versus just a file-to-file connection or a file-to-heading in another file connection. So if you need that level of granularity, if you want that level of granularity, currently Obsidian does not offer that and likely will not officially offer that at any point because that is not one of the main goals. But with Obsidian's new API that will be coming out, eventually. I think they're trying to come out with it at version 1.0. At this time, currently, I'm an insider using 8.15 or 0.815. They do not and probably will not support block level referencing, but with the new API that they're going to develop, there are certainly going to be plugins that make this possible. There's already some great ideas with Foam, which is the VS Code using a bunch of extensions to sort of imitate a lot of Rome's features. They figured out some ways to make this work with like hashing and some auto-assigned portions of code that goes at the end of certain paragraphs. So this is possible. It is possible. It is potentially a future offering with some of the developers that make plugins for Obsidian. But as it currently stands, Rome blows Obsidian out of the water with block level referencing. So next we need to talk about the platform. I've already mentioned some of this before. Obsidian is an Electron application, which means it's basically a web browser tab as an app. Now, the downside of Electron apps is that if you're running an older machine, you have older hardware, it can take up a lot of RAM. Like, I think it's upwards of like a gigabyte of RAM sometimes in Electron applications. I'm not too familiar with that, so don't quote me on that. But it's an Electron application. It means you can basically run it on anything, but it does have heavy resource needs. So the pro of this is that you can also use Obsidian offline. That is a big pro. Some people just want to go up to the mountains for a while, get some writing done, do some research, whatever. You can do that with Obsidian. Rome, on the other hand, is a SaaS app, which means it's a software as a service. It's in the cloud. They have their own database where your data is stored. You need an internet connection to use Rome. Maybe this will change in the future. As it stands right now, I'm pretty sure they do not have any other option other than SaaS app. So if you need to do offline work or you want to disconnect from the internet, you're not going to be able to utilize Rome for your research at that point in time. This one is less of a pro and con because I'm not too sure, because I obviously haven't delved too deep into Rome because I'm not willing to pay for a SaaS app in this case. But with Obsidian, it is extremely easy to customize Obsidian. It has dot files, which is something I really appreciate, again, from Linux, Unix-based systems, is it uses customization with dot files. It saves your workspace, it saves custom features like hotkeys you define, and it has a custom CSS file if you choose a non-default theme. So the community in Obsidian creates a lot of CSS themes and a lot of features using custom CSS. I currently am using a Grovebox theme in Obsidian, and I have more than half of my CSS file is just custom CSS found from the Obsidian forums of stuff that I liked. And yeah, it's super easy to just copy and paste a lot of this stuff and customize your own Obsidian workstation. I'm pretty sure I've seen Rome does have options for customization, but I haven't looked into that too much, so it might be just as easy. I'm not sure if this isn't a pro or con for either side, but customization, from my experience in Obsidian, super easy if that's something that you care about. So a big factor that many people are probably going to be caring about is that Obsidian is completely free. Obsidian is still in beta. A lot of people are not aware that I'm pretty sure Rome is too, I think. But these are beta applications. They're not done yet. They are rapidly developing, rapidly increasing in new functionality and a better user experience. But Obsidian is free to use. Rome Research, on the other hand, they have a $15 a month charge to use their software as a service application. Now, that's not the only price. There are special deals, I believe, for students, full-time researchers, and other people who qualify for that. And they also have a early supporter where you can pay like $500 and I think you're good from there. You never have to pay again. But in any event, Obsidian is free. They have, basically donation services. Like you can get early releases. Like I currently pay for the insider feature. So I get early releases of Obsidian, and it's basically like Patreon, but it's not recurring. It's a single time payment. You can either be a Catalyst supporter, insider, or a VIP. And I went VIP just because I love this application so much. I wanted to support the devs, and I just really enjoy it. So I decided to become a VIP and get that early access. So as is always important when you're talking about something that is basically a business is, okay, Obsidian's free, but where's the incentive to continue to develop this? Is this just going to go away in a while? Or the age-old question, how do they make their money? So Obsidian's current model, I believe, is that they have syncing and I think publishing features that they're going to offer as paid features that, if you don't need that, then you don't need that. If you have your own cloud hosting that you want to do, that's fine. I put my stuff on iCloud because I'm on Mac. That works just fine for me. But they also have commercial licenses if you're going to use this in a place to make money. So they're basically going to make money either by just services that they offer you around Obsidian, or if you use Obsidian for business purposes. So if you're just going to use this at home, you're doing a PhD or some degree, you want to build a PKM, build a second brain, knowledge management system, all this stuff, if you're doing it for your own personal reasons, you don't need to pay anything. It's free. Originally, my channel started out with a lot of Linux content, and I still really like Linux, and ultimately I will be returning to Linux with a custom Arch Linux build. But for a lot of the time being, and for much of the foreseeable future, I'm currently using my Mac. So, why is that relevant? Obsidian and Rome are not free and open source software applications. Shocker. So, with Obsidian, they're likely not going to open source, and currently the justification is, and understandably so, the pace of development right now for Obsidian is so quick that there's really not time, nor is it really worth the cost-benefit ratio to open source the project. And as they put it, as the devs put it, and as I fully agree and understand, is that if you're trying a rapid pace of development for something that is meant to be a business, then putting it out on GitHub right now when you're not even to the point where it's stable, it's not even 1.0 yet, then you have to do documentation. You have to train people on your code base. You need to set up issue templates, set up CI/CD. You need to have all of this stuff set up just to prepare for people to maybe contribute. People could come and go. Maybe they're not like really active contributors. You might get a couple, maybe not. But it's worth, ultimately, it's a lot of effort to set something up to be open source already of this size. And right now, the cost of that is not worth the effort of doing so. Maybe long-term they might. Who knows? It's been talked about on the forums. It's been talked about on the Discord server. But right now, it's not FOSS. It's free, but it's not open source software. So as I said in the beginning, a lot of the differences between these applications is irrelevant because it really comes down to what are your needs, what are you going to use this for, and which thing will better service your needs. And for just speaking about myself and what I like, what I'm using this for, and how I'm using these things, I got a list here that I'm just going to read off because I can't talk off the cuff completely all the time. But the key things that sold Obsidian to me versus Rome are the freedom and portability of plain text files, just like Linux and Unix-based systems, having it plain text, having it in files, having it on my system, my local machine, my data is mine. I value that very highly. I want my data to be mine. It's private, and only I decide what happens with it. That is a very big plus for me. The portable configurations, Obsidian has dot files. It's not in the traditional sense where everything is customizable by dot files, but your workspace, your key bindings, your custom CSS, these files are basically how you have your editor set up. So I could easily just take my workspace, my configuration, and my CSS file, send it to my my work machine, have my Obsidian distribution there, and just put it all over there. And now I have my complete setup. Maybe not all my notes, but I have my setup. My whole system is set up exactly the way I want it to. Now, if you combine that with, say, cloud hosting, GitHub, whatever, and you have all your files hosted that way, you can pull them down, you can push changes, keep it private if you wanted to. All of that, super easy to do with Obsidian. Your data is your own, version control, cloud hosting, these decisions are up to you. And this wasn't really a pro or con one, but personally, just editing Obsidian, super easy. Rome might be as well. I don't know, so I can't really speak to that. But It's super easy to customize Obsidian with CSS as long as you know what you're doing. But honestly, there's so much stuff already put out on the forums. The community is super active that you can find ways or request ways of things that you want, and it'll likely happen. The benefit of Markdown. Roam Research does have block level referencing. That's great if that is something that you absolutely need. But with Obsidian, plain text files means that I could easily just write a bash script, a Python script, run some code on my plain text files, do any sort of the command line utilities that I'm very familiar with on those plain text files just fine. And in fact, I do this kind of often because let's say you want to refactor a tag in Obsidian. At the moment, it's likely going to come soon. At this point, it's just not there yet, but it might be a feature they add soon. But let's say I want to update a tag and I want to completely change all instances of a tag in Obsidian to a brand new one. Well, what can you do about that? You pretty much have to go manually edit every file, unless you do something like sed. Use stream editing to replace all instances of this tag with a different tag. And you can do that with command line utilities. It's super easy. Recursively grab every file, replace all instances of this text with this text, and you're done. That's it. So the fact that it's plain text and markdown files, so it's not in any weird proprietary formats, means that it's extremely easy to do any sort of text processing, command line utilities, whatever you want. It's just a very common format. Markdown is ubiquitous, so it's very easy to pick up, understand, and it carries over with everything else because Markdown is everywhere nowadays. And a lot of the syntax that Obsidian uses is a common wiki syntax. I think some of it is different, but overall, it's a common wiki syntax that is used in a lot of different other applications. And so the crossover is really great. It's easy to just walk in from one editor to another editor because it uses the same syntax. Roam, if you type out certain things like their to-do toggle buttons, sliders, Pomodoro stuff, like a lot of that stuff, the syntax by itself, if rendered in plain text, is not found, I think, anywhere else. So it's more ubiquitous to use Markdown, to have that syntax. You have the downside of block level referencing is hacky at the moment. Like Foam has an idea, but in Obsidian, you don't have block level referencing yet. You have file or heading at best. And again, for this one, I did mention this earlier, but I can't speak to Roam and their community and their developers. But from experience with the Obsidian developers, they are super active, super friendly. They're always on the server because there's a big Discord server. There's an official forum, but the server has such a welcoming and friendly community talking about PKM, about how to modify Obsidian, what people are doing, and it's just a really welcoming and friendly place. The devs are constantly active, constantly fixing bugs, trying to push out new releases over and over and over again. They work very hard, and it's a very nice and welcoming community environment. One thing I can say, in my opinion, that Obsidian does vastly better than Roam is the graph view of your knowledge. So with Roam, you have a different sort of graph view where I don't really know how to describe it. You can see the links, you can see the density of links to different files and pieces of information. But what I really like about Obsidian is that every file is a point on the graph, and it basically uses D3.js and some other web technologies that I honestly couldn't even begin to tell you about. But using D3.js and network charts, you basically have a dot for every file, and every time that file is connected through those linking features to any other file, you can see a density of connections. The size of the dots grow. You can see where your information and knowledge pools around, and you can see an emerging structure of what areas that you spend more information and time on. And aesthetically, it's nicer, but also the interactivity. You can easily move in these graphs, select new dots, and then open up those files, see how things are connected, follow that tree, and get those serendipitous discoveries of how ideas are linked by using a graph. And not only is it like a graph of your entire knowledge base system, but you also have local graphs. So if I'm on a file, I can see only things that are connected to my file. And then I can click on a new one, I'm in a new file, and so on and so forth, and follow that pathway. But you want to see a couple degrees of separation. There's a feature for that. I'm not sure if it's released to public yet or if it's insider only, But local graph now has the ability to see degrees of separation. So I can see things that are connected to the things that are connected to my current file, up to several degrees. This is all really great for discovery, serendipitous discovery, and just seeing how your information and network is connected together. I love this feature about Obsidian. And currently, it's been talked about on the Insiders Forum. There's a lot of really great new functionality coming to the graph. By the time I'm filming this video on September 21st, it hasn't been released yet. It's likely going to be out before I even post this video, if I'm honest. It might be. But the graph in Obsidian, in my opinion, is currently and will blow Rome's graph feature completely out of the water. I think it is one of the best features about Obsidian is just the graph view and being able to interact with that. So ultimately, in the end, what Rome could do for me that what might use, not need, but might use, is block level referencing. Am I willing to pay $15 a month and only be able to utilize the application online for block level referencing? For me, that's a hard no. I also like my plain text files. So that's my response. That's why I chose Obsidian over Rome. That does not mean I'm saying Obsidian is better than Rome. What I'm saying is for my use case, for what I use it for, and for what I like out of my applications, Obsidian is perfect for me. Now Rome might be perfect for you. That's cool. I actually think Rome is pretty cool. But for me, it's Obsidian. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and a quick shout out to my patrons who support this channel before I go. Thank you, Devin, Alberto, Klaus, and Brandon. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, and I'll catch you all in the next one.